Hi students, welcome you all to this online class of science with me. My name is Abhishek and you are watching the channel Vigyanam. In our previous videos, we had already completed the last chapter, that is the combustion and flame, which I hope that you have already understood very well. Now we are going to start a new chapter that is about the conservation of plants and animals. And I hope that you already are familiar with the terms plants and animals very well, which you have read in class 7 about the forest and what are the resources that forests provide us, that so many things that forests provide us, that I hope that you are already familiar with those things and you can easily answer very well them. So today we are going to cover new topics such as about the deforestation and their causes, as well as what are the consequences after the deforestation. Then we will have a cover over the conservation of the forest and wildlife, as well as we will have a look over the biosphere reserves, biodiversity, and biosphere also, along with the flora and fauna. Now, first of all, let's start with the introduction of the chapter. That's plants and animals, that is, also the birds, brighten our lives, isn't it or not? Yes. So there are so many numbers of species of the plants and animals on earth from millions of years ago. But the thing is, from last few hundred years, they began to disappear one by one with a sickening speed due to the human activities. What are those activities that is responsible for the disappearing of those animals? Such as deforestation is one of the main cause, as well as the overhunting, polluting the environments also, isn't it or not? So the question arises that what is deforestation? So deforestation means that is a clearing of the forest and using that land for other purposes. Here we can see the picture of the deforestation, that how human beings have cut the trees in a large amount for their own purposes. So what should be the cause, or what could be the cause behind the deforestation? There are so many of cause, like procuring the land for cultivation, that the humans are going to procure the land, that is the land in which the wildlife used to stay, or wildlife used means the habitat of the wildlife. Humans are doing what? They are procuring the cultivation. We human beings are procuring those land for what? For cultivation. We are procuring those lands for building houses and factories also. Also, we uses the forest wood to make furnitures, isn't it or not? As well as fuel. So a forest act as what? As a resource. I hope that you have already uh, read about the resource in class 7. As well as the deforestation is also caused due to some natural causes, such as fires, as well as severe droughts. Now, what are the effects of the deforestation? Means, after the deforestation, what has happened? What are the consequences of the deforestation? So deforestation do what? Because of the large amount of trees have been cutted out by the human beings, it increases the temperature and the pollution level on the earth. Why does the temperature increases? Because the plant consume what? The carbon dioxide. And if there will be no plants, or the less number of the plants, so the amount of the carbon dioxide will increase. And this carbon dioxide will do what? This will traps the heat, and that's why it will increase the temperature. Also, it increases the level of carbon dioxide in the temperature. It The groundwater level also get lowered, isn't it or not? Because of deforestation, there will be no plants. Then it may lead to drought or desertification. So the groundwater level may also get lowered. Deforestation disturb the balance in nature. If the cutting of the trees continues, the rainfall and the fertility of the soil will also decrease. And moreover, there will be an increased chance of natural calamities such as the floods and droughts, right? Okay. So here we have seen some of the pictures that these are the causes, such as the droughts, the desertifications, isn't it? So human beings are cutting the forest in a larger number for their own purpose. So what is a drought that may cause due to the deforestation? That drought is what? It's a lack of water in an area. So drought can appear due to the what? Lack of rainfall. How does it happen? It happens due to the increase in the deforestation. This will lead to the increase in carbon dioxide in nature, which I have already told you. Now, what it do? The carbon dioxide traps the heat reflected by the earth, and this increase the temperature on the earth disturbs the water cycle. Obviously, if the temperature of the earth will increase, so that will disturb the water cycle, and that may reduce the lack of rain. And because of the lack of rain, that may cause the drought. Here we have seen the picture of the drought, isn't it? Now, about the soil erosion. So deforestation is one of that cause the soil erosion. Why and how? Because the larger the forest will cut down, the fewer number of the trees will left at a one place, which lead to the what? Which lead to the soil property, which lead to the change in the soil properties. Now, if the fewer number of the trees will be at a particular place, so the soil will get loosely held by the roots of the leftover trees at a place, which will displaced, which will get displaced by many other agents, which lead to the soil erosion. Here we can see the pictures of the soil erosion, that because of the less number of trees at one place, the soil erosion occurs. Okay. Also, desertification as well as the flood are the another consequences of the deforestation. Let's see how. Due to the deforestation, what happens? The soil erosion happens, which we had already read. Now, the soil erosion leads to the removal of what? Upper layer, isn't it? Now, this removal of the upper layer or the top layer of the soil exposes the lower hard and rocky layers, and this had less humus and is less fertile. As it will be less fertile, what will happen? The gradually the fertility of the land will decrease and it will be converted into a desert, and that is known as what? Desertification. Now, the deforestation also leads to the decrease in the water holding capacity. Obviously, if there will be less number of the plants or the trees, so the less number of roots will be inside the soil. Obviously, the roots of the plants used to do what? They used to hold the soil very tightly. As we can see here, the flood occurs due to the deforestation. So that movement of the water from the soil surface into the ground, that is known as what? Infiltration. The infiltration rate will what? Get reduced, and that may cause flood. Obviously, if the infiltration rate will reduce, means the if the amount of water that will go inside the soil, if that will reduce, obviously the water will move here and there inside on the soil or on the ground, and at that time we can see that the flood occurs. Now, the deforestation also leads to what? Global warming. How does it leads to global warming? As I have already told, that deforestation increases the amount of the carbon dioxide in nature, which leads to what? The major threats, because carbon dioxide traps the heat. So global warming is a what? It's change of climate on the global level. Here we can see the picture, that is from the 50 years, the last 50 years, the change of temperature in the earth. If we can see that the temperature increases from uh, 0 to 2 degrees Celsius at these places. Here, if we can see our India, that India is almost under the hottest place. As we can, as we already know that it is what? Equator, right? And because of this equator, it obviously the equator, the countries that above the equator, um, what they faces the highest amount of temperature, but because of the global warming the temperature increases, and if the temperature almost increases more than 2 degrees Celsius, that may leads to the death of living organisms in the earth. So usually what happens, the temperature increases leading to the melting of the ice caps, and that will the water, and that may cause the flood also, the global warming, right? And this is what? This is the consequence of the deforestation. So we have seen that there are so many of things which is the effect of the deforestation. Now, what measures that we can take, or what measures that has taken to conserve the forest and the wildlife, or to reduce the deforestation? So there are so many of measures, such as um, what the government has done to protect the loss of flora and fauna. Flora and fauna means what? The plants and animals. all over the world, what have done there are our government have taken many measures. What are those measures? The government have developed the protected areas which provide the natural habitat for endangering species, right? The national parks, sanctuaries, biosphere reserves, etc. are some of the protected areas which is provided by what the government. And in these areas, what is the main purpose of these areas? That in these areas, the plantation, cultivation, grazing, felling trees, hunting, or the poaching are prohibited. That no person will do what? The plantation, cultivation, grazing, felling trees, or hunt in these areas. So, by this, we can preserve those animals, we can prevent those flora and fauna from their loss, right? Because there are so many of trees or giant animals or the animals which are becoming extinct. Now what does this extinct mean? The extinction is when a species is commonly or completely wiped out from the earth. If any species is in earth in a smaller number, and if the number of that species is getting extinct, means the number of the species is getting lower, then it is doing what? It is going to be extinct. And extinction means when the species is completely wiped out, right? So these are the measures that the government have taken, or we should also can lower the deforestation by doing what? By plantation or reforestation, which I will cover at the later of this chapter. Now come to the another concept about the biosphere and the biodiversity. Now, what is this biosphere? Here we can see the picture. So, this whole picture showing what? The whole picture contains the plants, animals, even the atmospheres, the water, right? All, each and everything comes under this one picture. That means biosphere is what? This is the biosphere is the part of the earth in which all living organism existed or supports life. So here we can see the life supporting atmosphere or the life supporting that oceans or the water, each and everything comes under what? The biosphere. Now, what is this biodiversity? Biodiversity is that refers to the variety of organisms where the organisms live or existing on the earth, their interrelationships as well as their relationship with the environment. So, if we talk about the biodiversity, that means when the organisms are living at one place and their interrelationship and the relationship with the environment. So, when we are talking about those things, that means we are talking about the biodiversity. But when we are talking about the whole environment which provide the organisms to live, which supports life, that we are talking about what? Biosphere. I hope that you understand that you understand the concept about the biosphere and the biodiversity. Now, come to the biosphere reserves. So, as I have already told you that our government have taken some measures for the biosphere reserves, right? Means to protect those flora and fauna. So, one of them is the biosphere reserves. As we have already known about the term biosphere, that means the whole system that supports life. Now, this biosphere reserves is what? It is the area that is means for the conservation of what? Biodiversity. Now, which simply means what? The species of the plants and animals from any human interaction, means to simply to protect the species from the human intervention. Now, it is the Biosphere Reserves is what? It is the internationally recognized within the framework of the UNESCO's Man and Biosphere Program, that is known as MAB program, MAB program, that is Man and Biosphere Program. Now, what do you understand by the species? A species is what? It's a group of individual. When we are talking about the species, as you have already heard about this term many times during the video, the species is what? It is the group of individuals that can breed or can successfully produce the fertile offspring, means they can breed as well as they can successfully produce the fertile offspring. That particular individual group is known as what? Species. Here we can see a picture of a biosphere reserves, right? Now, in India, there are almost 18 biosphere reserves, in which the newly added biosphere reserves are like the cold desert, the Panna, as well as yeah, not Shimlipal, it is the Shishlam as well as the Kuch. Okay, so it will be your turn to find out the newly added biosphere reserves. I have left one biosphere reserve so that you are going to find out that total five new biosphere reserves have added. But the first biosphere reserve, so mm, that was um, means the government had provided that area as a biosphere reserves is that Nanda Devi Biosphere Reserves. Okay, so find out the first, second, and third biosphere reserve that was recognized, as well as the newly five added biosphere reserves. Okay, and try to answer that in the comment section below. Now, come to the last part of the video about the flora and fauna. So, what is this flora and fauna? That we have already discussed, that the plants and animals find it in the biodiversity is termed as what? Flora and fauna. Here we have the pictures of so many flowers, birds, as well as the animals. So, I hope that you have understood the terms very well and you have understood the concept of this chapter. So, I am going to end this first part of this chapter here. I hope that you all have understood. So, take care. God bless you all. Thank you all.